Hello and welcome. Today I'm adding Alcon from the Towerplan Arcade Collection 1 to my ever-growing list where I rank every Evercade game ever. Alcon is also known as Slap Fight, is a vertically scrolling shoot 'em up that really shaped the path of Towerplan games going forward. Originally released into arcades in 1986, Alcon is a game I had played before, although I did know it as Slap Fight and I'd never played the arcade original. Although I had some familiarity with it before getting the Evercade and the Towerplan collection, I can't say I had any real nostalgia for it. Anyway, onto the game itself.
Graphics.
The graphics are very clean and crisp, sharp sprite work. For the most part it looks pretty good. The sprites are small, all the weapons have a quite distinctive look to it, or to them even, and yeah, it looks good enough. It's very clear. It's not the most flashy looking shoot 'em up ever, perhaps not even for 1986, but it's a mostly decent looking game. Although I do find sometimes the bullets can blend into the backgrounds a little bit, partly due to their size and partly the colouring, but that's the only real criticism I have of it.
Sound and music.
The sound effects are clean and quite punchy. They do the job, again, partly I suppose due to the era it came out with and the hardware. There are sort of limitations, it's not as impressive sounding as later games, but it more than does the job. The soundtrack by Masahiro Yuge is quite melodic, has fairly short loops, but it's a good soundtrack. Very much of its era, not quite so menacing sounding as some of the later Towerplan soundtracks, but you can see the foundation for the soundtracks on later games almost being laid here. At least you can when you've played them later, knowing it's the same composer, and you can hear the sort of familiar, I suppose, style of the compositions being used.
Gameplay.
The gameplay is fairly standard vertically scrolling shoot 'em up stuff, and an early one at that. The power up works essentially: you shoot enemies, you'll collect stars, and as you collect stars you'll get a power up meter which will fill, and at any time you can choose whichever one is highlighted, be it weapon upgrades like the side shots, the bomb, the laser, the shield, and speed of course. Of course, certain upgrades will change the size and shape of your ship, giving a little bit of risk and reward there. Naturally, being a Towerplan shoot 'em up, if you die you're stripped of all your upgrades. Also, you'll go back to the previous checkpoint. The controls are tight and responsive, although your ship does feel very slow at first. Once you upgrade your speed a couple of times, you'll soon be dodging and weaving enemy bullets with ease. The game is challenging, especially with some of the enemy bullets blending into the background, being quite fast, and the screen can very much fill up with them, especially the further you get into the game, but it's not often you can really accuse a Towerplan shoot 'em up of being easy. But there are little ways to make your life easy, like not shooting any enemies for a while, getting as far as you can, then dying, and when you restart you'll have a whole host of power-up. Little things like that.
Overall opinion.
I think Alcon for 1986 is quite an impressive shoot 'em up, and it was only Towerplan's second after Tiger Heli, and there's some notable improvements over that. And it's also a game that sometimes I'll play and I'll just feel, no, this is a little bit too old for me to really appreciate, doesn't really hold up, doesn't really stand toe to toe with the best of Towerplan shoot 'em ups. Other times I can sit and get into it and really enjoy it for what it is. It's certainly not my favourite Towerplan shooter. It is a good game, but I think for my tastes it's not quite there. My tastes lean to the later Towerplan stuff.
Ranking.
So, placing it on my ever-growing list where I rank every Evercade game ever, I'm going to put it above Project X, but below Knuckle Bash, placing it 111 out of 370 odd games that I've ranked so far. Anyway, I think that'll do for today's video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.